everybody. Welcome to That Dog Training Show with Tanya Yarbrough, and that is me. And this is where we talk about the dogs we love and the stupid human behaviors we don't, also known as shubs, just so that we can say it around children. Anyway, if you all did not attend the Pack Leadership 101 seminar that happened this weekend at Blue Collar Working Dog in Echo Park, California, you missed out. It was a good time. We had quite a few couples there, and there's a lot of laughing, a lot of clapping, and a lot of like, oh, okay, I got it. So if you missed that, and you are in the area, February 15th is the next one, so it's the day after Valentine's Day, which you can make it part of like a whole package if you so desire. And you can sign up at www.bluecollarworkingdog.com and go to the Pack Leadership Seminar page, and you can find a button to, sign up ahead of time or just contact me. You can also go to my Facebook page, That Dog Training Show with Tanya Yarbrough, and make comments there, suggestions there, and I would love to hear your shub stories if you got one to share. So, and if you want it on the air, you can contact me and private message me, and I can go ahead and get the low down, the dirty details and exactly how you want the story told, like whether you should be anonymous or not, that sort of thing. And if that's the case, then I'd be glad to tell your shub story as part of the radio show. So anyway, today's topic is about little dogs. They're all that and a big bag of chips, I'm telling you. Now, the reason I brought this up is because I kind of was randomly surfing for things to talk about, because you could talk about anything when it comes to dogs, right? I mean, you could talk about dog nails and dog hair and all that stuff, but the deal is that I was kind of inspired because I now have a little dog, and my previous dog was sort of a medium-sized dog, although I guess some people call them little dogs, a Sheltie. But I used to have this weird bias about little dogs, and I think a lot of people do. Even as a dog trainer, I have had this sort of bias towards little dogs in terms of, their behaviors and that sort of thing. So one of the things that people kind of comment on, or I used to comment on, or what have you, is that, we see little dogs as kind of useless, or they're not, as good as as an outdoor companion. Like if you like to have an active lifestyle, etc., why would you have a little dog? You want a big dog, right? One that you can run with and go fishing with, or I know in this area it's not so much in Los Angeles, but in other parts of the country, fishing is very cool. Just relax. So, in other words, we, for that outdoorsy sort of active lifestyle companion, a lot of times, including myself, people will think that little dogs are pretty useless for that. Or even as intelligent partners, there's a little dog, they're stupid, they're noisy, they're just for people who really should have just a cat. I mean, what's the point? That kind of thing. And so I have, over the years, and clearly through my personal life, been more open to little dogs. And I think part of that was when I started training dogs for film and TV and print, I saw a lot of amazing small dogs, like Boston Terriers and Chihuahuas, that could do things that a lot of people's big dogs couldn't even get close to. And the amount of endurance and energy and focus they could have just really depended on their training. And, I think we take that for granted as just being these little, useless, fluffy things that can be picked up and therefore aren't really dogs. And I think that's unfair. So that's what this show is about, and breaking some of those myths and opening the doors to, possibly you opening your heart to a dog that's smaller than what you expected. I've already had a show about, the myth of having a backyard. Oh, if you have a dog, it needs a backyard, and they need someplace to go. Well, quite honestly, dogs are quite capable of being city dwellers. It just depends on how much time you have during the morning and evening for your dog. So, okay, back to little dogs. I'm going to refer to an article that was posted on Care2, that's C-A-R-E, the number 2.com, but it was originally on vetstreet.com, and it was written by Laura Cross, and it is entitled 5 Small Dog Breed Myths Debunked. And so I'm going to start the show with that, referring to this article that was really nicely, neatly put together and cross-referenced. So if you want to go to that little article, you can go on my Facebook page, That Dog Training Show with Tanya Yarbrough, which is a really long name, and find that article really quickly. All right, so number one myth that's brought up by Laura Cross is that all small dogs are yappy. I can understand why people think that, but there are actually quite a few small dogs that are not natural talkers. Like, they don't really spend a lot of time talking. Some of the examples she brings up is like Cavalier King Charles, Italian Greyhounds, Chinese Cresteds, Boston Terriers, Japanese Chins, Shiba Inus. So there's a lot of little dogs that aren't really prone to being vocal. There are a lot of big dogs who are prone to being vocal. German Shepherds and Huskies, just for example. Labs. Okay, so, it's not really fair to say that all little dogs are yappy. What I find that makes a dog super yappy is the training or lack of training by the owner. And that's kind of the problem. And yappiness, a lot of times, barking and vocalizations can be a huge symptom of a lot of anxiety that's not properly channeled through activity, brain activity, and proper socialization and manners, etc. So it's not just about how you train a dog to bark or not to bark, etc., but also if you've got a high-strung dog because you've made it high-strung, then it's going to bark more often. That's just the way it is. My previous dog with Sheltie are known to be barkers. They're just known to be barkers. I got a half-terrier Chihuahua mix right now that's more prone to barking. But it's more about how you train. I train my Sheltie not to bark ever. In fact, when I needed to teach her how to bark on command for stage shows, it was very hard for her to do that because I'd spent 9 years teaching her not to bark. She used to bark when she was excited, when she was sad, when she wanted attention, when she would just bark for everything. So I had to nip that in the bud, but it was, pretty much down to nothing. So it is really kind of a myth that just all small dogs are just yappy. It's almost always, compared to large dogs, just about the training or the lack of training that these dogs get. One of the things that will teach a dog to be more yappy is if you try to pick up the dog every time it starts barking or aggressing. That's a very Shubs move. So if you do that, you are reinforcing that whatever they're yapping at deserves to be yapped at, for whether they're excited or they are fearful. Either way, you're reinforcing that fear or excitement by picking them up. It gives them the wrong message. So you are now, although they stop yapping or barking when you pick them up, you're encouraging them to do it more and more often in that context. So don't do that. All right. Number 2, small dogs are easier to care for than large dogs. Wrong-go. Little dogs have just as many ear problems and eye problems and grooming problems than large dogs do. I think the only advantage you have is that they eat less, which I thought was a great advantage for Rambo, actually. Because quite honestly, we only have so much space for dog food, and I'd rather go shopping for my food. So the fact that I can get a 14-pound bag that feeds him for a month is, fantastic. So, but in terms of care, in terms of veterinary care, etc., you're not really winning by having a smaller dog. In fact, smaller dogs tend to need more grooming, although that's different when you talk about long-haired dogs. But smaller dogs need a little more attention. They're also more easily injured sometimes, just because they're smaller and they can get to smaller cracks or people don't see them as easily, etc. So you're not really helping yourself in terms of the amount of veterinary care, grooming care, etc. Toys are just as expensive if they're for a small dog as a big dog. I mean, you're really only paying $1 more a toy or something like that for a big dog. So it doesn't make any difference. The only real significant difference between small dogs and larger dogs and taking care of them and paying for that care is the amount of food that they eat. Number 3, all small dogs are lap dogs or purse puppies. Personally, I don't think any of them should be purse puppies, but you're going to do it anyway. So, yeah, small dogs are not necessarily lap dogs. My Sheltie did not like to be in the lap. She didn't. She was very independent. I knew she was very sick towards the end of her life when she wanted to be held. And really, putting dogs in a purse and carrying them around destroys their self-esteem. They might be cuddled for a little while, but if they never learn to walk and be on their own 4 feet, they're going to react to their environment in a very fearful way. So, I actually had one lady come into class one time, a basic obedience group class, and she was carrying this 6-month-old dog, which was probably about 20 pounds already, 20 to 30 pounds, carried the dog in to the class in a towel and held it on its lap. And, generally we teach the dogs to sit from the floor. We put them on the floor and teach them how to sit. And she's like, the dog doesn't know how to walk. I said, is it injured? And she's like, no, we've just always carried her because she was always like hyper or she'd be fearful. And, she was sick for the first few months of her life. So we just always carried her, so she doesn't know how to walk. The dog literally did not learn how to walk around its own environment, like at home, at all. The dog just lays there and waits to be picked up and carried. And it's a 6-month-old puppy that really is going to be like a medium-sized dog. So I'm sure it is now. And she couldn't understand why the dog was afraid of everything. And I was like, because you are carrying it around like it should be protected. And it doesn't. It literally did not have the musculature to actually learn to walk until the end of the class. So don't do that either, carrying the dog around. Bad for the self-esteem, bad for the physiology of the dog, and just because they're small, we can pick them up doesn't mean we should. So all small dogs are lap dogs? No. The best small dogs are dogs that are the ones that are treated like a dog and they walk on their own 4 feet. The first time I ever saw a teacup Chihuahua that actually had manners was owned by this huge male bodybuilder type. And I'll talk about that more, but one of the important things about the way he handled his dog was he didn't give it excuses and carry it over the edge of the sidewalk. He could barely get up and down from the sidewalk edge into the grass. So I'll talk about that in another one. But number 4, small dogs don't need exercise. I don't know who the hell came up with that one, because they have never seen a Jack Russell Terrier or a Sheltie or a Boston Terrier or a Mini Schnauzer or any of those dogs just kicking real ass out on the field. Those dogs are fast, they're agile, they're hunters, they're diggers. They require a great deal of exercise with a purpose. So, if you don't, in fact, those kind of dogs, exercise them with a purpose, as if they are doing a job at the moment, they will go batshit crazy. They will get depressed, and they will be destructive. So, small dogs need just as much exercise as big dogs. Just because they weigh less doesn't mean they need less activity. You just got to go based on the dog breed, what it was bred for, and how you structure its exercise. And it doesn't have to be, and it's true for big dogs, it doesn't have to be 40-minute walks 2-3 times a day. It just has to be with a purpose and a focus and give them some intensity to it. One of my best favorite things to exercise both big dogs and little dogs is this product called tail teasers. It's like a giant cat toy, but it's like a fishing pole sized cat toy for dogs. And that sucker I've worked with a Johnson style bulldog that's about 100 pounds. As well as a little puppies and my little 12-pound, well, he's not really 12, he's like 11-pound Rambo, and they go crazy for it and burn off all kinds of energy in very little bit of space. It's great for dogs that have joint problems, etc. The size doesn't matter. The kind of exercise doesn't really matter except for what that particular dog needs, and it's not about the size. It's about the needs of that dog mentally and physically. So the fact that small dogs can fit in a small space, and maybe you could exercise the garbage out of your Jack Russell just to